My name is Ben. I'm a dad to 4 mostly adorable but sometimes crazy kids. I hated being angry and punishing them all the time when they did something wrong. Anger has positive intentions. It gets your kid to do what you want. But the consequences of anger are severe. If you keep using anger, you'll lose your relationship with your child. It started happening to me. There is a difference between punishing and effective consequences. Now we think of consequences as something that punishes your child. Punishing aims to cause emotional or physical pain in hopes that your child will change. It often doesn't work and hurts your relationship. Now, effective consequences strengthens your relationship because your child won't fear you when you correct the negative behavior. According to research, there are 5 components that make consequences effective for negative behavior. A consequence needs to be immediate. It needs to be the right degree or size, needs to be consistent, needs to be important to the child, and needs to be varied. If a consequence isn't working, it's because it's missing one of these components, or one of the components needs to be adjusted. So, immediate means a consequence should be given as soon as possible after the negative behavior. This will help your child connect the consequence with their negative behavior. Here's a tip. Try and keep negative consequences on the same day, especially with small kids. Even teens have a hard time connecting their bad behavior to the consequence if the consequence comes days later. Degree or size means how big or small the negative consequence is. Based on what your child does, the negative consequence should match the size of the unwanted behavior. Here's a tip. It's better to give smaller, immediate consequences over time versus one nuclear consequence now. Consistent means you follow through with a negative consequence every time the behavior happens. Here's a tip. To be consistent, have a list of consequences beforehand. We have some ideas of consequences on our website. Important means the negative consequence has to be meaningful to your child. For example, loss of time with friends, video games, or activities they enjoy can all be used as consequences. So here's a tip. You'll find what's meaningful to your child if you observe them. Watch what they do in their spare time. Vary the consequence. Switch up the consequences you give your children. You should use a variety of consequences for different negative behaviors. If you use the same consequence for everything, it becomes less effective. Here's a tip. Understand that your children are going to change, and you need to adjust the consequence when it stops being effective. Timeout isn't going to work forever. Let me tell you about a personal situation with my 10-year-old son, Michael, who lied about his chores. He would tell me he'd finished his chores, but when I checked, they weren't done. He lied to me, his own dad, in order to have more time to play with his friends. So I yelled at him and I lectured him about the dangers of lying. He seemed to understand, but the lying continued, so I got desperate and I grounded him for a month. That didn't work either. So what did work? I decided that he had to do an additional chore immediately after he lied. I then asked him again if he finished the additional chore, and if he lied, I would give him another chore. But this time I stayed with him until it was done. I didn't make the chore too difficult or big because if it was, he wouldn't do it at all. So I chose something he could do, but it wasn't easy. I was consistent by following through with this extra chore every time he lied. His lying eventually stopped. I chose this consequence for him because extra chores meant less time playing with his friends, and playing with his friends was very important to him. This consequence worked. Even though he got an extra chore, I made sure to give him a different chore each time. I realized how important it was to use all 5 components with every consequence to make it work. And my son now understands there are consequences for his actions. Negative consequences are even more effective when combined with the skills of effective praise and effective rewards. Register with us on smarterparenting.com and share your story of how effective consequences worked for you.